You don't want to find out 5 years from now that you could have changed direction a little bit and made a lot more money. We want to see 3 years of financials. We want to see their tax returns. We want to see their bank statements. A CFO can tear all into that, make sure it all kind of looks legit for you.
It never crossed my mind that I could hire a CFO to look at a business engagement like that I'm looking to buy and ask the questions, because it's like, yeah, I want to trust the seller, but I also want to verify.
If you're going to hire a bookkeeper or anybody, along that line, do not give them access to your money.
Most business owners don't fail because they are not smart. They usually just don't understand their numbers. And what's interesting is that it's not because they don't care, it's because they don't know where to look and what actually matters. So today's episode is for those who feel overwhelmed by bookkeeping, confused by taxes, or are secretly avoiding their financials and hoping it just all works out. I'm joined by my special guest, Sarah Warren, the CEO and founder of Accounting Angels, a bookkeeping firm supporting small businesses in the local Sacramento area and beyond. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, Sarah, for people that have never heard of Accounting Angels, or really what the role of an accountant is, a bookkeeper and all that good stuff, could you explain what do you do?
Yeah, so bookkeeper. First and foremost, I can help them with individual bookkeeping tasks and just accounting as a whole. And I also offer fractional CFO services as well, but anything having to do with the money that's going in and out of your business.
What does the accountant do that's different than a bookkeeper versus a CFO?
A bookkeeper will typically be doing more of the individual entries, and an accountant will take it, or a CFO will be taking it after those entries are all compiled. So an accountant might be taking it to file taxes after the information is churned. A CFO will be running the financials of your business, running the money side of your business. A fractional CFO is, I don't need anybody full time, but I've got some pretty big decisions around money that I need to understand, and I need somebody that maybe has industry-specific knowledge, a lot more experience than me around financial matters, and I'm going to just hire them a slice of them.
If you don't keep track of your books as a business owner, what happens?
So if you don't keep track of your books, it doesn't mean that you're going to go out of business. There's a lot of people that don't really keep track of their books, and they have a great business, but it could be better. So keeping track of your books lets you know, if I'm doing something right, I want to do more of that. And if I'm not really doing something too great, I want to do less of that. So it tells you, it's like you're flying at a 50,000 foot view on an airplane, tells you where you need to focus. Where do I need to kind of land for a bit and work on my business? You don't want to find out 5 years from now that you could have changed direction a little bit and made a lot more money.
Why is it that business owners sometimes don't keep track of their books? Is it just they don't know how? Sometimes
they don't know how. Sometimes they have this aversion to financial stuff. They don't understand it really well. They don't want to admit that they don't understand it really well. And they don't have the time to learn it. And so they just kind of hope it's going to somehow miraculously get better. And sometimes they'll dump it on. They know maybe they have a really good tax person that they can just dump it on at the end of the year. So there's a whole myriad of issues. I do see sometimes their business is not going in the direction that they want, and it'll be the burying their head like the ostrich in the sand. They don't want to know what the reality is. Some of them just don't want to know because they know it's not going to be a great outlook.
Is there any new challenges, though, when you're working with crypto versus the traditional finance?
It is, because it can descend in value or ascend in value. And so you have to kind of keep track of that, because, you have and it does happen internationally as well, because, money in other countries can do that as well. So it wasn't really anything new, but it is unique to crypto and money and it has more volatility than some of the money in some other countries.
But on that note, are there other misconceptions about accountants, things that people think are true that aren't really true?
We're not all boring. No, and then, just because somebody is an accountant or a CPA or a tax preparer doesn't mean that they can't make mistakes, doesn't mean that they're perfect. Sometimes you'll get an opinion from one and it'll differ from the opinion of another. I think the devil is in the details. Can I write off a boat? It depends. What kind of a business are you? How are you using that boat in your business? So a lot of people will think that, they're getting bad advice from their tax professional, but it all, depends on the details of it.
For a business owner, they're not going to be able to go like, I'm just going to go Grok or Gemini.
You could absolutely do that as a business owner. So if you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know anything, you can take your financials and you can upload your financials, take out the names and stuff on it, and you can upload that data and ask it, tell me about what's going on. Here's my balance sheet. Here's my P&L. Tell me about what's going on with my business. What are some good things? What are some bad things? You can absolutely do that. And it does pretty doggone good. There's some things I'm like, ooh, that was really, really, really bad. But it does pretty doggone good. It'll tell you, you're overweighted on debt. It'll give you really great basics right now. And I think you should, because anything that you can learn and reason on, why wouldn't you try it?
Let's say someone does book a session with Accounting Angels. What would that first consultation look like?
Just talk about your business. What's going on with your business? What are your struggles? Are you too busy and need somebody to take it over? Do you have nothing? Do you have somebody that got in there and did some work wrong? Do you want me to clean it up and hand it back over? Do you need some training so you can do it yourself? We find out what the parameters are. Most of my clients want me to just take the bookkeeping. This is what's so great about this job, is that nobody wants to do it. If you're one of the weirdos like me that likes this kind of work, they just want to dump it on you.
My books are on fire. I don't know what to do. Is there a common trend or challenge that you see in the books?
One big thing that some business owners will do is that they commingle their money with their personal money. And so then it makes it a lot more difficult and a lot larger job. So if you get a business, have a separate business bank account. Have a separate credit card. If you're going to use a credit card, have a separate credit card for your business. Spend your personal stuff on your personal stuff. Spend your business on your business stuff. If you need money, transfer money from your business account to your personal. If your business needs money, transfer money from your personal account into your business. Don't run it all together, because it makes it really hard for people like us to untwist. And some people won't even take you. Insurance companies are going back on these contractors and they're saying, okay, you had these subs that worked for you. You need to prove that they have workers' comp.
Wow, that's crazy.
So you have a good bookkeeper, they're going to warn you. When you go to hire the plumber that has, a workers' comp policy. Get a certificate of insurance. You pay a bunch of people, you go pay somebody $100,000, it's going to cost you another $20,000, depending on what your workers' comp rate. It could be $15,000 or $20,000 bill that you're unexpecting to pay your sub, because they're going to force you to pick them up on workers' comp.
For those who want to differentiate themselves in the market, for the little people that are just trying to figure out how to get those subcontractors, if they pull out workers' compensation, it makes them way more desirable as subcontractors.
And so they can get, if they know, hey, it's just me working. I don't have any payroll. They can go get, which is what the insurance companies want. They can go get a minimal workers' comp insurance, so they have that, certification. So they're going to go and be a subcontractor for somebody. They have that, which will make them, more desirable as this all kind of, starts really shaking down.
What are the things that every business owner should know about their numbers?
Well, you want to know how much money you got in the bank? Not how much money the bank says you got in the bank, but how much do you really have in the bank? Right? Because you could have checks outstanding, or you could have your payroll that's not coming through till tonight. So it's not what you have in your bank at the moment. What do you really have in your bank? What's coming up that's going to be coming out of your bank? So what do you really have in your bank? If you have debt, what's your plan? You're charging up your credit card. What's your plan for paying that off? You want to know how much money you're making, but you want to know where you're making it at. What things are the profit centers for you? You want to know what your expenses are. You want to know what your profit margin is. So what's your average profit margin?
When you see people do their bookkeeping on their own, what's the common mistakes that they typically make?
They commingle their money, which we've kind of talked about. I just saw this yesterday. On their books, it has their profit and loss, and then they have expense car payment. And then, their $447 car payment. I'm like, that's wrong. They're like, why is that wrong? Why can't I write off my car payment? I'm like, you don't get the whole write-off for the car payment. So that's a really common one. So if your company owns the vehicle, you're paying off the loan on the vehicle and you only get to write off the interest.
Do you have a story of someone who's come and was like, okay, I've really messed this up and I need to get this turned around? Any crazy turnaround story you can share?
Yeah, all the time. It's like, they're usually coming, I'd say probably 90% of the time, 95% of the time, they're coming to me because something's jacked up. Maybe 5 to 10% of the time, they're actually proactive. I'm starting a new business, or I've been doing it. It's in great shape. Sometimes the bookkeeper is retiring and they're in great shape, but those are kind of rare. Usually something is messed up. I couldn't get a loan. The bank laughed me out of the bank. My accountant is refusing to do my taxes because he says my books are not, that's good news to me, because some accountants, they just throw it back out. They look at the books and they're like, I'm not filing these taxes. I can tell by looking at it, it's messed up. It doesn't make sense.
Have you ever found extra money by going through books, or
all the time.
People get more taxes back?
All the time. So I just had a guy yesterday, he bought a business and the accountant told him, you can't write off, a business can't buy itself. And I'm like, well, can you at least write off the interest? And so then he went back to the accountant and the accountant said, yeah, I can. We're going to refile 24. So he'll get a good refund. He'll get a tax refund on that.
That's crazy. Wow. Is there any other non-obvious benefits that people tend to get once they have some of that financial clarity?
So I got this client, their restaurant, I'm doing their books, and they're using the DoorDash and the, eBay Eats, Uber Eats, or whatever it is. And I'm like, you need to stop using this Uber Eats because they're charging you way too much money. You're literally going to get, you're literally better off handing somebody $10 and saying, don't order from me. That's how bad it is. You are losing money. And so we were able to tweak their menu items to not offer every menu item on those platforms, raise the rates on those items, and then also go back to the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes and negotiate a better rate. And to where those things that they were selling on those platforms became profitable for them.
What's the type of feedback that you typically get whenever you're done the books for them? You hand this up back to the business owners.
So my name of my business is Accounting Angels. I got my name not because I am saying I'm an accounting ain't. I am it's from my clients. They named me because they'd say, wow, you're my angel. You're my accounting angel. Because you're taking a weight off of their shoulders. EDD audits are very common now. Very common because people are hiring subcontractors, and the state of California is cracking down on that. So they want to know who your subs are. Are they a real business? So I'm a perfect example of a subcontractor. I have a real business. I have other clients. I have a business license. I have insurance. I have a website. I pay my taxes. I'm not really an employee, but you're paying me as a subcontractor, which happens a lot.
Geez, wow. What about offshore resources?
Yeah, you can use offshore resources.
But do you got to do do you got to do the workers' comp for them? Do you got to do this?
So typically, it can depend by business, but typically most small businesses, if you offshore the work, then they fill out what's called a W-8 form that basically says, I don't live here. You don't own me, and you don't have to do anything there at that point. You're kind of off at least, but you have to have that form set aside because if you ever do get the EDD audit, you have to prove that this is somebody that lives outside of the United States. So they're not, I don't have to 1099 them.
Yeah, which I right here. Why not?
I like it.
If you had to give a piece of advice for any industry, I know every industry might be a little bit different. What would that advice be?
Don't commingle your money with your personals and just understand the language of money. And this does not have to be hard. It could be get some audibles going when you're driving to work, listen. When you're getting ready for work, listen. So it could be very passive. If that particular person isn't exciting or interesting enough, then try something else. It could be free because you can check them out from the library. You can check out audibles on the library, but just kind of start trying to learn the language of money.
What qualities do you think makes a good bookkeeper or accountant?
The ability to sit behind a desk all day and look at numbers and not be bored with it. The ability to, in your workflow, create checks and balances for yourself. So how am I going to cross-check my work to make sure my work is right? Instead of, so that way you can make sure everything is perfect, so like you balance your checkbook, right? And you know that it balances because it goes to the penny, but you can also set systems in place for yourself similar to that, to that you're making sure that your work is correct. Don't feel like you have to know everything because you can learn and read, but I would say read the IRS publications to be able to understand them. So understand what the heck they're talking about. That's going to make a good bookkeeper because there's always exceptions to every rule, and you have to be able to understand what those exceptions are.
Let's say someone wanted to get in touch with you. What are your social media websites, handles?
It should be Accounting Angels. I'm based in Sacramento. I have a Facebook page. You can go to my website, which is accountingangels.com. Right on the website, there's a little book. A Zoom, you can book a meeting with me, a consultation. It's free right there. All else fails, you can call me up on the phone. If I'm with the client, I won't answer, but otherwise I try to answer the phone when it rings. And that phone number that's on my website rings right to me. That's my phone number.
Nice.
I try to be available for everybody.
Accounting Angels Sacramento. We'll get it in the description below.
Okay, good.
Pop
Thank
it up
you.
in the lower thirds and everything. So is there any topics about accounting, bookkeeping, CFO, world life stuff that we haven't talked about that you wanted to?
If you're going to hire a bookkeeper or anybody, along that line, do not give them access to your money. So most banks nowadays have what's called a view-only access. That allows the person that's going to be looking at things to look at everything, see everything, but they cannot steal from you. And I'm not saying that bookkeepers are going to steal from you, but they could get hacked and then the hacker can steal from you. So you always want to have, and it could be your admin, it could be your, whoever it is, give them separate access and lock it down and bolt it down. Fraud is rampant right now, really, really bad. And it's worse now because we're all on LinkedIn. So they know where you work. They know who your boss is. They know who the owner is. They know who the bookkeeper is because a lot of this stuff is visible on LinkedIn. So they know that you work at so-and-so place. They know who the payroll person is at that place, and they will figure out what that email is for that person and then send her with your name on it.
Man, the social engineering, that is crazy.
So just pick up the phone and call. That's your way around all that.
Thank you again, Sarah Warren, CEO and founder of Accounting Angels. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure breaking down accounting in a way that's practical, honest, and actually usable. I mean, I've learned a few tips that I think I might be able to take away. So,
well, thank you for having me. You asked a lot of really great questions. So was pleased to be here.
Thank you. Well, that's well received. Well, to the viewers out there, this conversation really drives home one key idea. Clarity creates confidence. So when you understand your numbers, you stop guessing, you stop reacting, and you start making decisions from a place of control rather than a place of stress. So thank you for watching this episode of the Key Concepts Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.